And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Jacked Up and Being Frank, our third episode here in our first season. I am Frank Aranio, joined tonight by my co host, Jack Yablonowitz. Big time in New York sports right now. New York Mets win game two of the National League Championship Series. They defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers today, this evening, 7-3 to even up that best of seven NLCS. So, Jack, how you doing this evening? And I know you're all pumped up about a big Mets victory.
Yeah, big win for the Mets. They they pounced them in the first two innings, and since then it was a little bit. The Dodgers did some Dodger stuff. They came back. Their big hitters hit some singles, but it was really no real damage for them done. They did scare. It was a scare for that Mets fans a little bit through the game, but most of it was just it was a good game throughout. It was kind of a down win throughout.
Well, it started off with a leadoff home run from Francisco Lindor. I
Yeah.
mean, that was so big to start the game. Leadoff homer after a 9-0 loss last night. Um, after the game last night, I'd love to get your commentary on how you felt as a Mets fan of the game. But I thought, all right, 9-0. Obviously a really tough night, but it's one game. If they could bounce back and win game two, even it up, and then go home to Citi Field, you got to be feeling good. Got to be feeling good about your chances to go to New York and win at least 2 out of 3 there, send it back to Los Angeles with a 3-2 lead. So I didn't make a big deal about last night's game. But how about you? How were you feeling after the game? And what were you thinking after the 9-0 loss and going into game two today?
Well, I think 7 game series, and I think also it's also different with this Mets team because this Mets team has came back from a lot of losses and big time losses this season, and came back in the next game they hit very well or just something like that. Like they've came back from tough stuff. So it's just the 7 game series. Also, the Mets as a team have came back from tougher stuff than a 9-0 lost in game one. I mean, you're still in the NLCS, so you wake up tomorrow morning and play at 4:15. So you've came back from tougher stuff, and also just 7 game series. It's a long series. That's why they make it 7 games. So, you know, maybe you get hurt in game one, you can come back game two and show your stuff.
It's a lot different than a best of five. Best of five, you're down 1-0 and you're thinking, oh, go down 2-0. Then you're facing elimination where, there's a little more room for error. I mean, today was big. You don't want to be down 2-0, but it's a different scenario than a division series when it's best of five. So, I mean, Mets just answered the bell today. I mean, there were some moments where you got nervous. They went up 6-0. You had the grand slam from Vientos. Who was it that got that double before Vientos? I'm drawing a blank on that, but that was
Tyrone Taylor.
Taylor. Taylor had the double down left field line. Vientos hits the grand slam after they walk Lindor, and that's a factor. You put Lindor on, which is a no-brainer. You got to do it. But Vientos comes up. There's motivation there, even though it's Francisco Lindor, who's had an amazing season, an MVP type season. He'd be the MVP if it wasn't for Ohtani. But for Vientos, that's incentive. You're like, hey, you're gonna walk anyone. You're walking someone to face me. You use that as motivation, and there he goes, hits the grand slam, comes up big again for the Mets. So such a big hit there. Another big grand slam for the Mets. And, again, there were some dicey situations. Los Angeles cut it to 6-3. They had bases loaded. What was that, the fifth inning that they made it 6-3? But then the Mets got a 5-4-3 double play. The Dodgers challenged it, but it was upheld. They challenged both at second and first base, but the Mets get that double play. That was enormous. Then it got dicey in the 8th inning, but the Mets got out of it. And then they got a run. Marte drove a run top of the 9th to make it 7-3. First 2 runners got on for the Dodgers at the bottom of the 9th, but then Diaz struck out the side. He struck out Mookie Betts. He struck out Teoscar Hernandez and Freddie Freeman. So a great job by Diaz, who could be dicey. He scares you, but he goes and strikes out those 3 guys. So good job by Diaz to close the door. So really a tremendous win for the New York Mets. I mean, if I was a Mets fan, not that I'd feel overly confident, but I'd feel really good after this game. Winning a game like that, bouncing back against a very talented Dodgers team at Dodger Stadium. Quick turnaround with an afternoon game. So fabulous job by the Mets. Now they go home with Game 3 on Wednesday at Citi Field.
So I want to talk about the little bit of the Mark Vientos thing you bring up, where he hit his grand slam. I want to kind of know that he said he felt personally, he took it personally, but I also want to say Mark Vientos is not. It's not like he's done nothing this postseason. He has
Yeah.
been mashing this postseason,
Uh-huh.
and that's the thing about this Mets team is also makes me confident. Like you, Francisco Lindor, you walk, and the next comes up is Mark Vientos. This Mets team, up and down, has been very good this
Yeah. I mean,
postseason.
I think it makes total sense to walk Lindor. I
Yes,
mean, you got a base open. You don't want to face him. So it really isn't anything personal for Vientos, but you're a competitor.
yeah.
I mean, even if it was Babe Ruth in front of you, even if it was Ted Williams in front of you. And again, Francisco Lindor is a phenomenal player and has had this MVP type season, an incredible season. So, it doesn't really matter. Like again, like it doesn't really matter who's in front of you. Like you're gonna take a person and say, hey, you're gonna walk someone to get to me. Okay, I'll show you. So you use it as motivation. So I don't know what was going through Viento's mind. I don't know if he is thinking like that, but it's kind of tough not to. It's human nature, and then he comes through. So that's got to be a really good feeling, to make Los Angeles pay and hit a grand slam to give your team a 6-0 lead.
Yeah, it's also nice that you have people up and down the order, as I said, that can hit. But I mean, Vientos, he's been hitting tough, like he's been hitting close game home runs this whole entire season. Big home runs, I mean,
Yeah,
this whole entire playoff run. But the thing about him is he's so young, and the Mets need that type of player at third base. I think every team has a type of player that comes on the scene and hit some home runs for them in the postseason. I think every team needs that. That just wants to make a big run, and Vientos just came up and done that for them.
that's how you make big runs. You're exactly right, Jack. Where a situation like that, where they intentionally walk the MVP, and then Vientos comes up and makes them pay, which could make a team think twice about doing it the next time they're in that scenario. I mean, I would walk Lindor every
Yeah.
single time. Like I don't care what happens behind Lindor. I'm walking him every single time in that spot. It just makes sense. I mean, you don't face Lindor, but it's really nice to have a guy like Vientos who could then come up enormous in that situation. So the Mets got a really good thing going. I mean, they're getting production from several guys in their lineup. They're not just relying on a couple guys. They their lineup comes through, in big spots, and they just keep doing that time and again. And again, Diaz today closing it out. Minaya, stepped up again. So, they're getting it all facets of the game, which you really need. They're getting it offensively. They're getting it with their pitching. Certainly not flawless, but, the Mets can still continue to play good baseball and getting the job done. Backs up against the wall, big situations. So again, you got to be feeling good about where the Mets are. I mean, this has the makings of a really good series. Coming into it, I slightly favored the Dodgers. I just think talent-wise, I don't know how much the home field advantage matters, but I just slightly favored the Dodgers. I gave it some thought about who I thought won the series. I thought Dodgers in 6 beforehand, but not an easy call. I think it's almost an even series. Again, I think the Dodgers talent-wise have an advantage, but it sets up to be a really good series. And, now for the Mets, getting a split in Los Angeles, got to be looking at, hey, go to New York, you win 2 out of 3, you're up 3-2, and they just show they could win in Los Angeles. So the Mets are in a good situation now, and now it's a 3 out of 5 series.
So what I'm saying at the Mets here, I'm not like I had the Mets actually coming out and winning the series in prediction because I mean you look at the Dodgers and their and their starting pitching, it's not really there. And I think it showed up today where they had to throw a bullpen game, and the Mets have been hitting bullpens,
Yeah.
and it showed today where the Mets just mashed their bullpen, and they didn't want to go to Walker Buehler because he has not pitched very well this season.
Yeah, and
So
he's going game 3. You got to love
yeah,
the Mets situation game 3 against Severino versus Buehler.
and the Mets, you look at them, they have a ton of ace pitchers that you can throw out there. like Severino, Manaya, Quintana has pitched like an ace. So and Sanga's missed the spots at first, but like David Peterson has pitched very well.
Yeah.
So other than the game one, but it's not like Sanga, but he just didn't pitch well in the first game, Dave Peterson. But he's been very well for this postseason, and he backed up Sanga on the first game in Philly in Citizens Bank Park, so he's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the Mets have the starting pitching advantage in this series. They got an advantage on Wednesday night in Game 3 with Severino versus Buehler. The Dodgers have been going with these bullpen games. It's worked out for, but to me that only goes so far because the problem is when you go with bullpen games or in any scenario where you're using more pitchers, the more pitchers you use, the more chance there is that somebody's not going to be good that day.
I think people use the word exposed. So when you get those relief pitchers exposed, then you have nights like when you get to Game 6 or Game 5 where Lindor cracks a home run,
Yeah,
or just for example, Lindor cracks a home run off a relief pitcher, or Vientos, or even Marte cracks a home run against a relief pitcher because you have exposed them.
Yeah.
By
The more
pitching
you
them.
see a pitcher, the more advantage it is for the hitter. So you're absolutely right, Jack. And again, what I was saying before, the more pitchers that you use, the more chance there is that somebody's not going to pitch well on that day. And Ryan Brazier starts the game today. He gives up a home run to Francisco Lindor to start the game. It's huge. I mean, to start the game that way after a 9-0 loss to the Mets and your MVP
And I
leads the game off
also
home run, like that just lets the Mets exhale. They get a lead. So it just the Mets got off to the best start they can, had the grand slam the next inning. So the bullpen game didn't work for the Dodgers today. And you hear, particularly the people that love the new school stuff and the analytics and openers, and you know what? It didn't work today. And it's only going to go so far. So, I mean, I'm almost rethinking my prediction as we're talking because the Dodgers have an issue with the pitching. I mean, if they could
but I do
if they
understand
can
the
somehow
challenge.
pull off Game 3, then they're in really good shape. But the Mets are, looking good for Game 3. But the matchup clearly favors them. Now Yamamoto would go Game 4. The Mets currently don't have
I don't
anybody.
think Yamamoto can go that many pitches because I think he's came back from injury like 1 month. He's pitched 1 month. Like I don't think he's allowed to go that many pitches.
I'm going to go back and look at what he did Friday night.
He pitched well, but I don't think he pitched a
Yeah,
lot.
he pitched well, but how long he went into the game? 5 innings, and he threw 63 pitches. Yeah, I mean, so they took him out 63 pitches and 5. So you're right. He's not going to go deep in the game, but they do have him
That
lined
also
up.
exposed your bullpen, as I said.
Yeah, they have him lined up for Game 4. So if you're the Dodgers, I think your mindset is find a way to split the next 2. Be 2-2, and then the matchup for Game 5, I would think will be the same as it was for Game 1.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, that hasn't been announced yet, but I would think that it'll be Flaherty. Well, the Dodgers have Flaherty. I don't know if the Mets are going to go with Senga again.
Do you go with Peterson? I don't know. I don't know what the Mets will do.
Yeah, because
Peterson pitched well too.
Who's going to the Mets don't have anybody listed for Game 4.
I think they would go Quintana Game 4.
So then maybe they go Peterson Game 5 and don't go with Senga again.
Yeah, I mean it's a question that you have to decide. I think it depends on where the series is, but it's definitely up to the manager decision. But I
mean,
don't
you
know.
can't even look that far ahead right now because you
Yeah.
got to see who gets used in these next couple games.
Yeah.
So you really can't decide that right now.
Because Peterson can go 1 to 2 innings in next game or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, again, for the Mets, like, I'm not saying they have to win tomorrow night, but tomorrow favors them. Wednesday night. That matchup favors them. Like, the Mets, I think they need that game more than the Dodgers because the matchup favors the Mets. With the Dodgers, if they don't win Game 3, now there's obviously pressure down 1-2 and you're in New York, but you have Yamamoto. Like you said, You don't know how deep he can go in a game. I would argue there's more pressure on the Mets tomorrow because the matchup favors them. Would you agree with that? Or you say it's more the Dodgers because they fall behind 2-1 in New York? It gets dicey for them going to game 4, Citi Field, and being down in the series.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think it was also the same thing as the Dodgers kind of needed game 1 more than the Mets did because of how they set it up. They have Flaherty on the mound, which is the only kind of reliable pitcher that can go 80 to 90, or 100. Flaherty is the only pitcher right now. You can go Walker Buehler. Probably he's been shaky all season long. So, I mean, Flaherty is definitely the guy where you're supposed to win that game against Senga, and then he's going to split with Pete, or he's going to go 2-3 with Peterson. No one expected Senga to do that bad.
Yeah,
but
I like that point. That game 1, there was more pressure to the Dodgers. Dodgers got to win that matchup, and they did.
And they definitely did.
Today, more pressure on the Mets. You don't want to go down 0-2. Matchup favors the Mets. Game 3, the matchup favors the Mets. So if we're going to go with that same thinking, well, then there's more pressure on the Mets in game 3. But you'd rather be the Mets because you got a better matchup. So, again, Jack, I mean, the Mets are in a good spot. I think it's going to be a really good series.
Yeah, Buehler.
I guess I'm still going with the Dodgers, but, man, the Mets just keep showing more and more. And, I mean, this series, I mean, you could even argue it's a 50-50 flip of the coin type of series.
Yeah. Buehler, it shows he has 10.8 ERA, which I don't really know in this thing.
Well, that's just for the postseason. I mean, you're going to have inflated ERAs when somebody hasn't pitched well, but it's a small sample size. I'm looking here. He pitched 1 game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he didn't pitch well in that game. I'm trying to remember. I mean, that was one of the games against the Padres.
Yeah, Buehler this season has pitched.
I mean, he only pitched 16 games. He was injured. I mean, he had a rough regular season in the limited innings. I mean, he pitched 75 innings. So
I think that game could be. Do you think? Wait, I want to hear. Do you think the Mets are favored to win Game 3? In your opinion, do you think the Mets need Game 3?
Well, as we were saying, yeah. I mean,
okay.
The matchup significantly favors the Mets. I mean, Severino has the postseason experience. Now, Buehler has postseason experience too. But again, Buehler's in a rough spot. He was injured a lot of the year, has not pitched well. He's capable. I mean, when he was healthy and at the top of his game, he was a dynamite pitcher. So there's a capability there, but you got to really like the matchup for the Mets. So, you can say, I think the Mets are going to win game 3. But, the Dodgers lineup, the Dodgers could come out, swing the bats, win the game. But, again, I think going into game 3, the pitching matchup clearly favors New York.
Yeah. I think the Mets having these 4 dynamite pitchers are showing themselves right now, right? Because they kind of if they didn't have them, they would. I don't even know where they would be matchup wise, because they have Manaea, Severino, Quintana, and Peterson. Not a lot of teams have that where they have 4 ace-level pitchers, and you're facing the Dodgers right now, and they've been great.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the starting pitching edge goes to the Mets, and I don't care what era of baseball you're playing in, whether it's 2024, it's 1924, it's 1954, it's 1984, it's 2004. Starting pitching is the most important part of a baseball team. So the analytics people could try to reinvent the game all they want. Starting pitching is still the most important part of baseball. Even though starters don't go as deep into the game, you'll never be able to get around that. It's the most important part of a baseball team. And the Mets have an advantage in that department. So it counts for a lot. Now, the Dodgers have advantages in other areas. Again, Mets lineup's no slouch, but, I mean, the firepower the Dodgers have, gives them an advantage there. But you add it all up, it's a really close matchup. You go either way. Anybody who picked the Mets totally got a case for the Mets. Anybody who picked the Dodgers, totally a case for the Dodgers. So it's going to be exciting, Jack. So we'll see how the Mets do as this series now goes to Citi Field. So let's shift gears and let's go to the other New York baseball team who we really haven't talked much at all about on our program so far. The Yankees won the division. They're number one seed in the American League, so they had a bye. Didn't play in the wild card round. Yankees won in the division series. So last show that we had, the Yankees were up 1-0 against Kansas City. They had played game one. They won that 6-5. They then lost game two and then went to Kansas City. Low-scoring games. Yankees pitching was tremendous in Kansas City and overall was very good in that series. So they beat the Royals 3-1. So tonight starts the American League Championship Series, New York Yankees, Cleveland Guardians, which I keep looking up. I'm looking at my TV. No score at the end of one. Stanton came up second and third, 2 outs. I missed the swing. It looked like he just missed it. He
Flat
had a
out
fly
to
ball
left.
left field to end that inning. So it's no score going to the top of the second at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
So, Jack, the Yankees, the Yankees are good. They're a good team. They're not great. They have good starting pitching. They have an ace in Cole. Rodon's tonight. He's capable. He's shaky. But they have the starting pitching advantage in this series, no question about it. No question Cleveland has the bullpen advantage, but Yankees bullpen was very good in the series against the Royals. But again, the edge goes to Cleveland. They had the best bullpen in baseball all year. ERA-wise, it wasn't even close. And then lineup-wise, Yankees have a better lineup, deeper lineup. They have the two megastars, Judge and Soto. But Cleveland's lineup is no slouch either. They got some guys in that lineup. They scored 7 runs in their first game against Detroit in the division series, but then they got shut out games 2 and 3. Got the bats going in game 4 and game 5. Big grand slam in game 5. Who was that again? I'm drawing a blank on the name. I should know it. But they got a big grand slam against Skubal in game 5. So they beat Skubal.
Lane Thomas.
Lane Thomas at the grand slam?
Yes.
Okay. So then, Jack, what do you think of the series? So I don't know anybody who thinks Cleveland's the favorite, but how much of a chance do you give the Guardians in this American League Championship Series?
Well, I do think they have the chance, but with the way Judge has been right now, but I also think that the bullpen definitely, them having a good bullpen with them having like starting pitchers, I think with them having the bullpen, it could definitely neutralize what the Yankees are going to do, what the Yankees are trying to do, which is they're trying to get if they get into a late inning game, which is going to be like 7, when they get in the 7th or 8th inning, I think with the Guardians up top, I think I give every game to the Guardians, like with their bullpen. So I think like if the Guardians are up by 2 runs after the 5th inning, I think I'm going to give the game to the Guardians every single time with the way their bullpen is. So that's something that is really valuable, really valuable.
Yeah, again, I don't think anybody could argue against the Yankees being the favorite in the series. They are, but I don't think they're a big favorite. I think the Yankees are good, but I think being in the American League helps them. This is one of the weaker leagues in recent baseball history. They played Kansas City in the division series. Young team, not a pushover team. In Kansas City, 1 game to a Yankee Stadium. The games in Kansas City were close. Kansas City could have easily won one of those games and gone to a game 5. Like, it wasn't an easy series, but the Yankees are playing a better opponent in the championship series. And Cleveland, you can make a case that Cleveland overall 1 through 26 is a deeper team than the Yankees. I wouldn't say that that's, no doubt the case. But I think you could make the case for that. Like Cleveland, they have a well-constructed roster, and the Yankees clearly have the advantage of the starting pitching, but that Cleveland bullpen is dynamite. In this time of year, like, again, I'm not going to be contradictory here. I still believe starting pitching is the most important part of a baseball team. But in the postseason, in off days, you could piece things together more with your bullpen in the postseason than you can the regular season. I mean, that's just obvious. Like regular season, all the games you have, it's different with the off days. So here in the postseason, like you can try to piece it together with the bullpen. Now, I think eventually that runs its course. But Cleveland does have that advantage. And then also, again, Yankees lineup is better. They have the megastars, but Cleveland has a good lineup. I mean, they have guys. They have Jose Ramirez, who, if he's not a superstar, he's a really, really good player. He's kind of on that I'd say that borderline of being a superstar. You got Josh Naylor in the middle of their lineup. You got Quan at the top of the lineup. So you have some guys in that lineup. Like it's a lineup that could do some damage, and is able to come up clutch in big spots. So I think this will be a good series. I think Cleveland will be competitive. Jack, do you have a prediction for this series?
I would say the Yankees, but I want to say the Yankees in 6. I think it's gonna go 6 or 7. I think this is a long series, but I think with the bullpen and also with the Yankees starting pitching, I think I give them the edge. With the Yankees starting pitching, I give them the edge 6 or 7. I think I'm gonna go Yankees in 6 or 7. I think if the Cleveland wins, I wouldn't be surprised, but I think 6 or 7. I give the Yankees the edge.
It's tough to pick against the Yankees, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I just think things happen in the playoffs. The favorite does not always win. That's clear. So right there, like you say, that's just, you're not really certainly not using analytics with that. But it's using history. It's using a reality of postseason baseball that the favorite doesn't always win. And I don't think the gap is that big between these teams. And again, I think you can make an argument that Cleveland 1 through 26 has a deeper roster. So I think that Cleveland is close enough to the Yankees where they definitely have a chance in this series. If Cleveland could find a way to split in New York, it's the same thing as with the Mets, where if you could split on the road in the first 2 games and you go home, then you say, hey, we go home, we have 3 games. And that's the thing about the 2-3-2 format, which has always been the format in postseason baseball with 7-game series. 2-3-2 format. If you're the lower seed, you split and you go home, you got 3 games. It's like, hey, win 2 out of 3 at home. It's 3-2. Then you got to go on the road, win 1. So like I think Cleveland has that chance where you get one in New York, then you go to Cleveland. That fan base is starved for a World Series championship. They haven't won one since 1948. So I kind of feel like one of these years Cleveland's going to do it. Like they've knocked on the door. They've had so many heartbreaking postseason losses over the years. So, I'm going to pick Cleveland because again, things happen, and I don't think it's outlandish to predict that they could beat the Yankees. Again, the Yankees are not a great team. They're good, but they're not some juggernaut. They've benefited from being in the American League. Houston got knocked out in the wild card round, Baltimore. So the road opened up for the Yankees. They got a nice matchup in the division series. It wasn't easy, but they won in 4. So I think Cleveland is a couple levels above Kansas City in terms of, being a tough postseason opponent. So I'm going with Cleveland. You want to say I'm biased because I don't like the Yankees? Well, then so be it. I'll say Cleveland in 6.
Well, yeah, I think honestly with that prediction, I think it's fine. I'm gonna stick with the Yankees, but I feel like it's fine because I wouldn't be surprised. I keep saying with both these years, I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland won, as I said with this. But
I'll say this though, I think Cleveland has to win tonight. I think tonight's big because then you got Cole in game 2. I think they got to go win tonight. If they lose tonight, I'm not going to feel good about my prediction. So my prediction, I think, hangs on tonight.
Yeah, I think Rodon is very much hittable compared to Garrett Cole. But
And
yeah, I
Cole's
think
not locked down
yeah.
in the playoffs. I mean, he's had his clunkers. He didn't pitch too well game 1 against Kansas City, but he was very good in game 4. But Cole's had his trouble in big spots. 2022 postseason, he was very good. But you go back to the 2021 wild card game at Fenway Park, which I was there. He had a tough night that night. So, look, I mean, Garrett Cole's great. He's at least a top 5 pitcher in baseball. You could say even top 2 or 3. So, for Cleveland, I would say tonight, I can't say it's a must win, but my prediction of Cleveland in 6, I think it hinges on tonight. If they lose tonight, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah, and that's fine because um because of the way the Yankees are with their pitching. I think that they're pitching game 1 Rodon, they're pitching game 2 Cole. I think, as you said,
And then they go
they're gonna
Schmidt game 3 and Heel game 4. So they got their rotation set
yeah.
up where Cleveland, they got Cobb tonight. How do you pronounce his name? Bebe? I don't know how to pronounce it. The guy's going tomorrow night. But they don't have any announced starters. So they're going to be piecing together. They're like the Dodgers in this series, just going game by game, and they could use an opener in one of these games. So, I think Cleveland, I think they have a fighter's chance. Most people are picking the Yankees. I was looking at Fox Sports. I think I looked at ESPN too. It's like 3/4 of the, so-called experts pick the Yankees, but you still
But
got, about
they
quarter of
also
people
said
picking
they also
Cleveland.
said
So
the
it's not like
series
it's 90% plus for the Yankees.
they also said the series was over when the Mets lost game 1, 9-0.
What's
So
that?
they also said the series was over when the Mets lost 9-0
Well,
in
anyone who
game
said
1.
that doesn't know what they're talking about
Yeah.
because it clearly wasn't over. I mean, sometimes it's better to lose big. You lose a close game, a heartbreaker. You blew a save. You blew the game late. Like, you could argue you're better off losing 9-0 than if they blew a lead last night.
Especially in a deep playoff series when you could just go and throw out like one of your lesser pitchers and kind of load up for the next game. Kind of go on to the next game. Kind of be like,
I mean,
okay, let's get
anybody
on
who
to
said that the series was over because of last night, I mean,
no, the people
I'm
on top.
sorry. Like, I don't think the person knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So again, the Mets got it done today, and we'll see with the Yankees. Bottom of the second, no score. So you got both New York teams. We could be heading for a Subway Series. If Jack is right, we're going to have a Subway Series. If I'm right, it's going to be.
Oh, and yeah, that's also against my prediction. Yeah, I want a Subway Series. I think that would be good. I don't know about other non-New York baseball fans would think about it, but I think it's nice to see a Subway Series.
We had one 24 years ago, and there was a bunch back in the day with Dodgers, Yankees, and Giants, Yankees. So it's definitely a possibility. I got Dodgers and Guardians. You got Mets and Yankees. It'll probably wind up being Mets, Guardians, or Yankees, Dodgers. But who knows? I mean, that's what makes it a lot of fun. It's very tough to predict.
And I think it's so tight. Like, this is the great thing. It's so like I wouldn't be surprised if my prediction was wrong. Like, I'm not like
of course. I mean,
I'm for example, I'm going for the Dodgers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets. I would be definitely surprised if the Mets won. No, it's great that both teams, are close, and that it makes us want to watch. I think that's great for everyone.
Well, that's why it makes it exciting. Like, if you knew it was going to happen, I mean, it's just that's not fun. Like, it's fun. It's exciting when it's pretty much unpredictable, which the baseball postseason pretty much is. So we watch these games. We go into it even tomorrow night. We say, oh, the Mets have the advantage, but that doesn't mean they're going to win. Dodgers could jump on Severino early, and then all of a sudden, things are different than what you expected them to be. So, again, we'll be tracking this. We'll be tracking both New York teams as they are in the league championship series. So we're going to shift gears. NFL, we're in week 6. The New York Jets are playing tonight. They're kicking off shortly at 8:15 kickoff, I believe, Monday Night Football, MetLife Stadium. They're playing the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Jets fired Robert Saleh, which we're going to talk about. They lost to the Vikings last week in London. They got down early. They came back, but ultimately lost after that brutal loss against the Denver Broncos at home the week before. So the Jets stand at 2-3. However, the Jets are in a bad division. I think it's fair to call it a bad division. Or you want to say a subpar division because the Dolphins, they're struggling. The Patriots are brutal. The Bills are good, but they have their struggles. The Bills are 3-2 and they're starting 3-0. So if the Jets win tonight, they're tied with the Bills and they're in first place because they have the tiebreakers in with the game. So the Jets are actually playing for first place in the AFC East despite all of the turmoil and all of the chaos and the mess that the New York Jets are. So, Jack, your thoughts of the Jets, and lead us off with your thoughts on the firing of Robert Saleh last week.
I think everyone was surprised with the fire of Robert Saleh, but I think that when you bring in this talented team, like your expectations are high, as we said, and you're gonna be like, okay, what can we do to fix it? And I don't know if it's right. I think we'll spark another conversation about is it right to go right to the coach and like you're fired because stuff did not work out the way you wanted to with the talent. But I think that's kind of what it need to be done. Like you can't really change a team right now. Um, so you need to fire the coach. I think that's what they thought. They needed to fire him. But, he wasn't really the offensive guy for them. Nathaniel Hackett wasn't the offensive guy for them because they moved him and they had Todd Downing do the stuff with the offensive coordinating stuff. So now he's going to want to run a heavy offense, which involves Brees Hall. So now they're trying to piece that talent together better with their new head coach and a new coordinator and having Nathaniel Hackett up in the booth calling plays instead of on the field, which Todd Downing will do. So they're going to try to piece it together and use that talent better than they thought they did with with Robert Saleh. So that was the biggest thing. I mean, you just got to try to piece that talent together, and you also have to save these years with Rodgers. And that's kind of the biggest thing. You got to save these years with Rodgers because you don't know how long you're going to get this team with that quarterback.
Jack, the Jets are such a mess. And I don't have a problem with Saleh being fired. I was listening to Joe Beningo on his podcast last Monday. Joe, the former, well, no, not former. He still contributes to WFAN and is on there. But Joe Beningo, huge Jets fan, longtime radio host, now doing podcasts in the New York area. So Beningo said if the Jets lose to the Bills, don't be surprised if Saleh gets fired after that game. So when I heard him say that, I'm like, that makes sense. Like his job could very well be on the line with the Monday night game against Buffalo. But he got fired before the game. So that surprised me. It doesn't surprise me they got fired mid-season with them struggling. But to me, he should have been fired after last season. To me, it was clear after last season that he's just not cut out for this job. And maybe down the road, he's cut out for another head coaching job and his second stint as a head coach works out. I question that, but I don't rule that out. I mean, coaches, grow and mature and learn. But I just don't think that this job was going to work out for him. So I think they should have fired him after last season. They kept him around. I mean, it's tough to know exactly what goes on, but clearly Aaron Rodgers has major say in the organization. You could say that he's running the organization. He's been given that power by Woody Johnson. Who knows exactly what transpired, but I feel very confident saying that Rodgers had something to do with Saleh getting fired, whether that was he went to Woody Johnson, said get rid of him. I tend to think that wasn't the case. I would think it was Woody Johnson said, hey, what do you think? Or Woody said, hey, I want to fire Saleh. What do you think? But I would imagine Rodgers had some say in that. Nathaniel Hackett's terrible. He should be out the door, but he's there because he's Rodgers' guy. So that's the whole problem with the Jets is that Aaron Rodgers has all this power. Now, I'm not anti-Aaron Rodgers like a lot of people are. I recognize that there's issues with him and there's things that he's done that's indefensible, but he's a future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. It was worth bringing him in and, saying, hey, we're going to go for it. We have this talented young roster, particularly in defense. They brought in guys on offense. But it's no surprise it hasn't worked out because talent alone, Hall of Fame quarterback alone doesn't get the job done. You need the coaching, you need the culture. You have to be able to put things together. Last year they had that terrible offensive line. Rodgers got hurt, fourth play of the season, ruined the season. And this year, the offense has really been struggling, and Rodgers has not played well. So it's a mess. And, even though, going into this game and, if they win the game, they're in first place. But, again, I'm okay with Salah being gone. The timing's curious. I didn't think it was going to happen this early. As Beningo said, after the Bills game, I could have seen that happening. But regardless, I say, okay, he's not the coach anymore. You shake it up. You have a sense of urgency. Rodgers isn't getting any younger, so I get it, but I don't have any confidence that it's going to make a big difference. Maybe it rallies them tonight. They win the game. They're in first place. But I don't expect that to last, even though I think Buffalo is a team that, could be beaten in a division. I just don't think the Jets are up to it. I don't think, a head coaching change is going to make that big a difference. They still got the same guy calling plays. I think the offense, do they get it going and get better on offense? Yeah, maybe. But they're just a mess. They'll win some games, maybe win a couple games where it's like, hey, they beat a team that's a good team, maybe like tonight's game. But then they're going to have their games where they're playing an opponent that's clearly inferior to them talent-wise, like the Denver game where they lose the game. So I think ultimately it's going to add up to 8-9, 9-8. At most, if they really played well, maybe 10-7. But I don't see how you can make the case that this team is anywhere close to being a contender for going to the Super Bowl, which we talked about has been the expectation. So I don't see in any universe that they're competing to go to a Super Bowl this year. What do you think, Jack?
I don't think so at all, but I think also the firing, talking about the firing here, I think the firing had to do with just not running the ball at all. Like, not using Brees Hall, not using. I know the offensive line isn't good, but not running the ball. Like, they have no play action that's worked. Nothing.
Well, who's most at fault for that? It is the head coach because the head coach is in charge, but
I say Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, ultimately it's on the head coach. He runs a show, but you have a defensive head coach. So how is Hackett still there? How is he not out the door? That's why this really is a joke because he's
weird.
Still there. We know why he's still there. He's there because of Rodgers.
They have Todd Downing calling the plays now, but they still have Hackett around. I don't know what he's. I think he's in the booth, kind of calling plays, but kind of not. Todd Downing did say he's going to run more, which I think it does. It's going to help them. I think moving of coordinators, moving Hackett, having Todd Downing call more of the plays is better for them. I think it will open up more using Brees Hall, and it'll help them with the play action and just opening up their offense. I think this offense could be very good, but you've seen this offense only put up 7 points or something like that, or only put up 10 points. That just shouldn't happen. And this team has so many weapons, they could just use them by using one as a decoy and opening up another one. So just having a different coordinator could help them a lot on offense.
Yeah. So you know what? I kind of got to take back what I said. Hackett's there, so I'm saying he should have been fired. I think he should have just been out the door, not even in the organization anymore. But you kind of make a case. You kind of make the case that he basically was fired. He was demoted. He's not calling the plays. He's not the offense coordinator.
What does he do?
What is he still there for? It's just like
what does he do now? I couldn't understand what he did. What do you think he does now for them?
I'm reading online right now an article from Bleacher Report. It says he'll be managing the staff in an undisclosed role. What is that? I've never even heard of this.
I think he's going to call some of the.
I've never heard of this happening where the offensive coordinator loses his position in the middle of the season and then is still on staff in another role. Somebody else calling the plays is now the offensive coordinator. But what is the purpose of having Hackett there? Maybe you can say it's not a big deal, but I think it is because it just shows what a joke the Jets are.
Yeah, I don't know why they're keeping him around, but I just think that moving the offensive coordinator and having Todd Downing do it will help them more. I think that's all.
Yeah, look, I think I'm going to walk back what I was saying. Like, you should have got rid of Hackett. Like, he basically did get fired. Like,
Yeah.
at least he is not calling the plays. He's no longer entitled the offensive coordinator, but like, what is
And
he
I,
still doing there? Is he just
and I,
there because Aaron Rodgers loves him? And like, I, I just,
that's why they
it's
bring in
it's a
Lazard,
it's a joke of a way.
and they bring in Lazard, which Lazard's been nice this season, but they bringing him in too for that, and they bring in a lot of guys because of Rodgers.
Yeah. Again, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to Hall of Fame first ballot. It's worth having him there. It was worth bringing him in. It's just a mess. I don't see how any of this changes much for the Jets. I mean,
Yeah,
if it gives them a boost and they're good enough to make the playoffs, all right. And I said it on the show last week, like the Jets make the playoffs. That's a big deal. They haven't been in the playoffs in 14 years, but they set expectations of Super Bowl. And you bring Aaron Rodgers in, well, that's what your expectations are going to be. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight. See if the offense is different with Downing calling the plays. So I guess there's an opportunity here to see if the Jets can. I mean, there's an opportunity, but it's like, let's see if they can turn this around. Let's see if any of this makes a difference, particularly on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, because the defensive side of the ball has been like I think the Jets have always had like these last few years of great defense, and
The defense is very good. I wouldn't call
yeah.
it great.
Oh,
Defense.
I think very very.
Yeah, I would say very good. I wouldn't give it the level.
I think the better thing to say is they have gave the offense, they have gave the offense a chance to win. Like they have gave.
Of course, it's a very good defense. I mean, what is it? Is it a top 5 defense in the league? I don't know what it is according to the metrics, but it's up there. It's one of the better defenses in football. So they have clearly a good enough defense to win and be successful. I wouldn't call it a great defense, though. I mean, look, the opening game, I mean, the Niners had their way, ran the ball, with ease in that game. And, so for the Jets to be a great defense, they have to go to another level and they have to step up against very good opponents, but it's a very good defense. So they have plenty on the defensive side of the ball. For them, it's getting this offense figured out. So maybe they do with a new play caller, new offense coordinator, and with Aaron Rodgers stepping up and playing to something close to his MVP caliber that he's been throughout the course of his career. So then, Jack, let's shift gears to the other New York football team. Your New York Giants lost to the Bengals last night. Ugly game. Disappointing for the Giants. They're 2-4. Where do the Giants stand right now?
Well, the Giants right now, it's the same thing with the Jets, but on less expectation. They just need the offense just is not good, and also as I keep saying, the defense gives them a chance to win. Which I mean by that is they're like a play away from winning, or like a few plays away from winning. The defense gives them chances to win games. So the thing about the offense is, I guess Malik Neighbors was in, but I think it definitely goes to the quarterback. And this team is a playoff team with a new quarterback, with a different quarterback than Daniel Jones. This team is a very good this team is a good football team, in my opinion. Like with the wide receivers, with the O line, with the defensive line, with the defense in general. I think this team is a good football team. I don't think they're as bad as what it shows, but I think this team is a good football team, and I think it just needs a new quarterback and a little bit just a new quarterback in general. I think this team just needs a better quarterback.
It seems to be the consensus that it's all about the quarterback position. That if they had a good quarterback, they'd be a good team, maybe a playoff team, maybe competing in this division. So they got to get the quarterback, though, Jack. So how is that going to happen? I mean, you need a top pick, right? So do you try to lose games? If you go, I don't know, if you go 7-10, you go 8-9. Like say they they play pretty well the rest of the way, and somehow, at 2-4, like say they finish 7-10, 8-9, you're picking middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think it's
Are
about
you hoping that they pretty much tank, whether it's on purpose or not?
no, I don't think tanking. I think 7 and 10, you pick in the middle. But I think if you want, like once we get to draft day, I feel like if Joe Schoen and Joe Shane and Brian Dable have their guy in mind and he's still on the board, they trade up for him. And that's the type of the way the Giants can do it is they use their assets to trade up and get their quarterback and having themselves get a contending year. And they can also draft some guys second and third. I think that's the way the Giants are going to do. They're going to really analyze and see what QB they can get. If it's at the fifth, sixth pick, they can go
Yeah.
trade up. But I think that's the way the Giants have to do it because they're still competitive. I understand it's a weird position. I mean, you don't really want to lose games. I'm not going to cheer to lose games. So the Giants are going to want to win games. And I think once it gets to draft day, they'll make some little here and there moves to get themselves that quarterback.
And then you also want to see your team progress. That's a tricky thing. Is like, oh, tank. Well, first of all, like these guys aren't going out there and not competing. So the whole thing with tanking, like, yeah, there's ways you could do it, where it's not so blatant. Like, yeah, but like, the players are going to go out there and compete. The coaches are going to coach to the best of their ability. I mean, there's jobs on the line. You would think Dable's back next year. I don't think he's going anywhere. But you want to see your team develop and progress, and there's been good things for the Giants. They're 2-4, but they've been in games. Like you could say they could easily be 4-2, right? So they've been competitive despite, having some ugliness in there. And last night's game was ugly. But you're saying, like, it seems to be the consensus where it's all about the quarterback pretty much. I mean, there's other holes in the team, but the biggest thing is the quarterback. Daniel Jones is not the guy. So it's a matter of them getting that guy, but you want to see the team progress. So, like, you go 4-13. Well, that's not a good thing because that means your team played really poorly. So you're not seeing progress out of the team. So, if you go 4-13, then you have one of the top picks. So that'd be good. But it's kind of tricky there. So, I mean, you bring up a good point. You could trade up. Now, trade up, I mean, you're going to have to give up a lot. So, it's going to cost you. But, if you could pull off a deal that makes sense, you trade up, you get the quarterback that way, then, the Giants could be in business. But then, get a quarterback, you develop that quarterback, comes in as a rookie. There's no guarantees. But it goes to show you, Jack, the National Football League, I mean, the quarterback position's always been important, but it's never been more important than now. It's more important than ever. Quarterback-driven league. It's an offensive league. And there's not many guys out there. I mean, Mahomes is the top guy. There's only one of him. There's a few other guys that are elite, but, most teams don't have that guy. So there's few and far between. So, I mean, I'm not well-versed in the college quarterbacks. I don't watch too much college football. But the Giants are going to have to evaluate the college quarterbacks well, and then maybe they'll have an opportunity to pick that guy. But again, there's no guarantees you're going to develop that quarterback too.
Well, yeah, I think having neighbors, I think that's going to help the college quarterback kind of, develop. I think it's going to help them progress as, you have that number one wide receiver. I think bringing in a quarterback, sometimes a quarterback just doesn't have a number one wide receiver. And that's going to be different as a Giants quarterback. That's why I have a little bit more faith in drafting quarterback and having them succeed is because you have the number one wide receiver. Is because you have the decent line. So now you insert a quarterback that's new and you don't really put that much expectations on him, and he can really succeed with that good old line, with that great defense behind him, and with that number one wide receiver and those other receivers in Wanda and Jalen Hyatt.
So would you rather be the Giants or the Jets right now?
It's hard. I think like
I think it's an interesting question. It just actually just popped in my mind. I didn't plan on asking it, but
because the Jets have the talent, But I also feel like the Giants had the talent on defense too, with Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. And the Giants also have Malik Neighbors. I know I keep saying him, but he's could be a top 10 wide receiver in this league. And he could be a top 5 wide receiver next year.
The Jets are clearly a more talented team. I don't think that could be disputed. And they're clearly significantly better at quarterback, but the Jets quarterback, how much longer is he going to play? Is this his last year? Is next year's last year? I mean, I think he's already said he plans on playing 2025, right? I Rodgers. I mean, you never know. I mean, who knows at the end of this year? Like, things could change, but he's not going to be around that much longer, right? So they got a short window, or a small window when it comes to having Aaron Rodgers around. Now the Jets have a lot of younger talent. So, as they move forward and the Rodgers era is over, well, then it's who does their quarterback become? But, there's a lot of young talent on the Jets. So you can say, well, the Jets, their future looks good. But it's still the Jets. It's still that organization. It's a mess. I mean, they're talented, but it's a mess. They just fired a coach. It was ugly. They escorted him out. They've had problems on the offensive side of the ball. They're 2-3. They lost to Denver at home. What wasn't a pretty game in London, even though they came back. They're down 7-3 right now. They kicked a field goal to take a lead on the first possession of the game, but then
the Bills went down.
The Bills went down and scored a touchdown. Same thing with the Jets defense. Look, very good defense, but offense gets a field goal to start the game, and then the Bills come right down the field and score a touchdown. So that's deflating. It's like, you get on the board, you're winning early, and then right away Buffalo comes down. But anyway, honestly, if I'm going to answer my own question, I don't think it's a no-brainer. I don't think it's cut and dry. But I'd rather be the Giants. The Jets to me, I never will trust the Jets or answer the Jets in a question like this. The Jets or whoever. Maybe a couple other franchises I'd say I'd rather be the Jets then, but it's the same Jets run by Woody Johnson, fired the coach middle of the season, did it in the worst way possible. Problems on the offensive side of the ball. 40-year-old quarterback. The Giants, hey, they need to get a quarterback, but most teams are in that predicament where most teams don't have an elite quarterback, and only one team has Patrick Mahomes. So, the Giants are Brian Dable. The Giants have a much better coaching situation.
And their offense, I think, is ran better. Even though the points don't add up for the production, but I feel like their offense is ran better.
Way better. Yeah,
way better.
Yeah, I mean, that question there, look, I think Giants have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And they got to get that quarterback, but
and it looks like
I would rather be the Giants than the Jets. Now, I'd rather be a lot of other teams than the Giants.
Yeah.
But there's light at the end of the tunnel for the Giants. There's a path for the Giants.
The general manager knows what he's doing. Joe Shane knows what he's doing when he drafted Banks, when he drafted Kayvon Thibodeau. And I don't know if that's really a hit, but he drafted Banks, who's been very good. Not only guard a bunch of those Justin Jefferson type players, but we don't need him to do that. He's a great cornerback too. But he's drafted some good guys, also made some trades to get himself some draft picks that have turned out to be decent and trading kind of older players. He's done some good trades. So he kind of knows what he's doing. I think the head of the management knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and look, the Giants had a bad season last year. But the Giants made the playoffs two years ago. They won a playoff game 2 years ago. So they're not far removed from having a good season. I think the schedule helped them a bit that year. But hey, I mean, they made the playoffs. They won a playoff game on the road. I mean, they got totally exposed against Philadelphia. But Philadelphia was really good that year.
Yeah, Philadelphia was
So, again, Giants made the playoffs 2 years ago. And right now, hey, I mean, they're 2-4, but there's signs of progress. There's good things there. There's a long way to go. And they need the quarterback. And it's not like the Jets have no hope. Of course there's hope for the Jets. I mean, again, we talked about the Jets' talent, and the Jets do have Aaron Rodgers. As the Jets are marching down the field. So
Brees
far, so
Hall, as I
good.
keep saying, Brees Hall has got a lot of touches. Like, as I said, keep run heavy scheme. I mean, Brees Hall didn't get any touches last. Like, he's got like one or two, yes, in London, but like he's not got anything. And when you're talking about him, I know, like I'm gonna go with fantasy. He's a top 5 pick in fantasy, so he's one of those top players that you want on your team. And the Jets not giving the ball is kind of like an issue for the Jets right now. Is not getting your
That's a major
playmakers the
issue.
ball. Yeah, major issue. So just that simple thing is going to help the Jets more. Getting those playmakers the ball.
As they hand off again, as the Jets are first and goal, down 7-3. About 2.5 minutes left in the first quarter of Monday Night Football. So, Jack, let's shift gears. Our final topic for the night before we get to quick closing thoughts. The New York Knicks. So we know the Knicks made the big trade a couple weeks ago, getting Karl Anthony Towns, Dante DiVincenzo, and Julius Randle went to Minnesota, to the Timberwolves, which those teams actually played a couple
Yeah.
nights ago. Or actually last night. Played last night at the Garden. There was some
There was some
friction there.
trash talking in preseason games, which is crazy. I like it.
Oh,
You
I
know
love
what?
it. I mean, they're ready to go.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some tension there. A trade, like that was
yeah.
great.
I really
Preseason
like
is
it.
usually boring as could be. There's a storyline to come out of preseason.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Brunson and Don DiVincenzo having to get separated, which was not on my bingo card, but that's happened.
I love to
And
see these teams match up in the finals. Make that happen.
yeah,
Not out of the question. Never. I mean, it's unlikely, but it's a chance.
but yeah, I mean, going on the Knicks, the defense has been as advertised. The defense is going to be here and it's going to be there for the whole entire season, unless, knock on wood, somebody gets injured. But the defense is going to be there. But the offense has chemistry. Chemistry, I think, is a big thing. Rust and chemistry as they get together. I mean, the spacing. Okay, Cat wants the ball here, Cat wants the ball there. Big thing with Brunson and Cat trying to get themselves, trying to get the rust off together so they can be as good as they can be going down regular season time. And same with Mikal, his shooting, just getting that rust off. But, the spacing and the plays, just stuff like that tuned up. But I think the defense has been advertised. I mean, these guys are crazy. Watching OG Anunoby just rip the ball from somebody is crazy. So it's great to see this Knicks team play at a high level. I know it's only preseason, but it's great to see this Knicks team play at a high level defensively.
So the Knicks open up next Tuesday, October 22nd, at the Boston Celtics, as the Celtics will raise their 18th championship banner. So exciting matchup right off the bat, playing the team that they're chasing. Everybody's chasing. So they'll play Boston next Tuesday night to kick off the regular season. So, Jack, I mean, really, any thoughts that you have on the Knicks, any direction you want to take this, if you want to talk about what you're looking for the next week in preseason. Again, usually not so much you could draw from preseason, but you talked about the defense. Again, we had some excitement and some friction last night at the Garden between the Knicks and the T-Wolves. But, what are you looking for with the Knicks in this last week of the preseason, starting the regular season? What's most on your mind as this 2024-2025 Knicks regular season approaches?
The back end of the rotation, who's gonna play, and like also the minutes, like everybody's gonna play their real minutes, and what are some of the lineup combinations that go together? Because that's big, especially that's why you need preseason, because once you get in the regular season, Thibodeau can hit the right buttons, hit the buttons he thinks works. So yeah, I mean, lineups without Brunson, they work, which is great to see. I mean, it's crazy. Lineups without Brunson work. Just with Mikal, Cat, Deuce, Shamit, like those lineups work, which is crazy. So he can push the right buttons when he doesn't need Brunson out there, or when Brunson needs a rest. He can push the right button. So just seeing what lineup combinations work. So if Brunson needs a break, Mikal needs a break, OG needs a break, you can put in lineups that work and kind of combat it, especially with the Knicks having their depth not being the best as possible. So you can kind of see what lineups go together at when.
So opening night. Now, we'll talk more about opening night on next week's show. How much stock do you put in that game? Like, are you going into that game and saying, big game right off the bat, let's show what we could do against Boston? Or obviously the game counts, it matters for the standings. But how much does it matter for the long term as you think about trying to match up with the Celtics and trying to give them a run in the playoffs and beat them in the playoff series? Like, how much stock do you put in opening night, or is it really not that big a deal?
I think it's huge because of the Knicks' first 10 games are a gauntlet. So I think it's huge getting that first win, beating the Celtics, because of how much momentum it could push into that gauntlet of a first 10 game. Playing teams like the 76ers, like I don't have their first 10 game up right now. Playing teams like the Wolves. I don't even know. Do they play no, they don't. Playing teams like they play the teams like the Celtics, Pacers, Cavs, Heat, like teams that could beat like Bucks, Pacers, like 76ers, like they're playing teams.
They're playing all those teams in the first 10 games?
Yeah. One.
My goodness. It's a loaded schedule.
Wizards, they're playing the Celtics, Pacers, Cavs, Heat, Pistons, Rockets, Hawks, Bucks, Pacers, 76ers, Bulls. So that's loaded. So I think winning that first game is huge because then you go to Indiana at home. The place is rocking. MSG's rocking. You can get that win, and then you go to, and then you stay in there, stay in MSG, beat the Cavs. So it just pushes the momentum. Winning game one. I don't know if we'll hold any stock in the playoffs because KP's out. Not Chris Porzingis is out, so I don't know how much stock will hold in the playoffs. But you need that first game. Like that first game is big for them.
Well, with Porzingis out, then look at that as an opportunity to get one in Boston. I mean, if he was playing, obviously you're trying to go up there and pull off a victory opening night, but that's an opening. You have any hope of the Knicks beating out the Celtics and being the number one seed in the East, or you think that's something that's not going to happen?
What the biggest thing
over the course of 82 games are not going to beat out Boston?
The biggest thing for the Knicks is that you just need to get in the playoffs healthy. I think what we showed last season is that health matters. Like you want to get in the playoffs, but like if you can get the third seed, get in the playoffs, second seed, get in the playoffs, you don't need to get that one seed. Like you just got to be there healthy because we've seen.
Do you care about seeding? Do you want to come in the top three?
Yeah, top three, top four. Want to get a home.
Boston is the number one seed. Yeah. If you're the 2 or the 3, then you avoid Boston to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah. I think 2, 3, but also I don't want to really shoot for 1 because then I just want to get in there healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think you're competing with the Celtics over the course of 82 games. I think that's too tough. I mean, you got to see. You never know if the Celtics are riddled with injuries, but can't play those what ifs. I think it's just too tough to keep up with the Celtics for 82. But that's not ultimately what the Knicks got to do. They got to find a way to get themselves in a situation where, come playoff time, they could compete legitimately with the Celtics in a best of 7, give them a run for their money, and try to win a best of 7 series against Boston. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. Be healthy, have a good regular season. Be nice to come to the top 3, avoid Boston to the Eastern Conference final, but go into the playoffs playing your best basketball, be healthy, and then make a run at it. But, we're way down the road with that, but it's always, fun to take a look and, talk about and assess, what the Knicks got to do in terms of the course of the long haul of the regular season. But as we get into the regular season, we'll do more. You'll be taking the lead on it, but we'll do more of breaking down the regular season games, what's going on within those games, and seeing the shorter term view of what's going on with the Knicks, as well as talking big picture in regards to the Knicks and the rest of the league as well. So, Jack, you want to talk about your podcast, Nick of Time, and your latest episode, the 3rd episode that you just did a couple days ago for your 2nd season of Nick of Time, and then what you got coming up on the 4th episode, and just general what the nick of time, obviously about the Knicks, but, what you got going on your Nick of Time podcast.
I think the fourth episode, there's going to be more about the predictions. So, fourth episode is going to be about predictions of every single team in the league because we're going to do a lot of Let's talk about a lot of teams in this prediction episode to see, and also we're going to predict the first game of the next season. So I'm going to go a little more in depth. I have a few notes to go in depth, but we're also going to be talking about the whole league and do I predict them to do well or not, and about this just the stuff they're dealing with to start the season, what they've done in the off season, what they're dealing with to start the season.
Okay, so we have that to look forward to. So an NBA season preview on Nick of Time coming up in a few days later this week. Jack will have his fourth episode of the second season of his Knicks podcast, Nick of Time. So we're looking forward to getting the Knicks season going. A lot going on in the sports world. Again, the Mets and the Yankees in the league championship series. Right now, the Yankees have a 3-0 lead. Top of the fourth over Cleveland in game one. Jets are up 10-7. Moving the ball. Offense looks good so far. So good sign for the Jets. The Giants with the loss yesterday. But as we talked about, there are good signs for the Giants. Quarterback position, got to figure that out eventually. And then hockey as well. We haven't talked hockey. We'll talk a little bit of hockey at some point on our Jacked Up and Being Frank show. I was actually at the Devils game this afternoon. They played the Utah Hockey Club. Devils won 3-0. The Rangers are playing tonight against the Detroit Red Wings, and also the Islanders are out in Colorado playing the Avalanche. So there's a lot going on in New York sports. It's a fun, exciting time of year. So, Jack, any closing thoughts before we conclude tonight's episode?
No, just hope the rally for the Mets keeps getting on.
You think the Mets will win tomorrow night?
Yeah. The Citi Field's going to be rocking. It's been rocking the whole entire October.
Yeah, I'll say the Mets win tomorrow night. I think the teams will split the next two. Like, even if the Mets lost tomorrow night, I think they'll bounce back in game 4. So I think they'll trade games. Man, in game 5, you got Flaherty for the Dodgers. We don't know yet for the Mets. This is going to be a great series. Again, I got Dodgers at 6. You got Mets in 6. Yankees so far get up 3-0. But we look forward to continuing to watch the baseball postseason, and particularly that Mets game tomorrow night in the National League Championship Series. So that'll do it for our episode tonight here on Jacked Up and Being Frank, our third episode here in our debut season. So we will have our next weekly episode probably next Sunday. All right, we'll be talking about baseball, about football, the NBA season coming up. Maybe get into a little bit of hockey, just touch on what's going on with our local teams. So a lot going on in the sports world, and we'll be back again next weekend for our fourth episode to talk with you again. So for Jack Ilbanowitz, I am Frank Aranio. Thank you for joining us here on Jacked Up and Being Frank.